What we witnessed on SmackDown tonight was not just a surprise return. It wasn't simply a creative twist to re-energize the roster. No, this was the beginning of something far more monumental. A seismic shift in the power dynamics of WWE. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the ruler of the WWE Universe, has officially appointed a new Wiseman. And this time, it isn't some slick strategist or polished deal-maker from the outside world. This isn't about seeking another hype man or a new voice to carry the weight of his empire. This time, Roman's turn is back to the roots, back to the bloodline that built him, that shaped him into the monstrous force he is today. The new Wiseman is none other than Roman's own uncle, the legendary Hall of Famer Rikishi. This move has sent shockwaves through the WWE Universe. Fans, insiders, and legends alike are calling it one of the most significant power shifts in the history of the company. The bloodline, once fractured by betrayal, doubt, and power struggles, now has a solid foundation built on family, history, and legacy. Roman Reigns has not just reclaimed control of the bloodline, he has strengthened it with a bond that runs deeper than any business deal or alliance could ever achieve. What we saw tonight may just be the most dangerous version of the bloodline the world has ever witnessed. The betrayal of Paul Heyman. Let's rewind a bit. It wasn't too long ago that Paul Heyman, the longtime advocate of Roman Reigns, the guiding force behind his reign as the tribal chief, made a move that stunned everyone. At WrestleMania, in the biggest moment of the year, Paul Heyman, the so-called wise man of the bloodline, turned on Roman Reigns. This betrayal shook the very core of the family. Roman Reigns, for the first time in years, seemed vulnerable. He was isolated, exposed, and left to fight on his own. For weeks, the WWE Universe speculated about the future of the bloodline. Solo Sikoa, who had been the enforcer and silent powerhouse of the faction, was starting to show cracks in his loyalty. The Usos were torn between family ties and personal ambition. Roman was facing a civil war from within, as the very foundation that had made him untouchable seemed to crumble. But the arrival of Rikishi tonight proved the doubters wrong. Roman was never lost. He was recalculating. He was always one step ahead. A legendary arrival. The SmackDown arena was buzzing with anticipation as Roman Reigns' music hit. The lights dimmed, and an eerie silence fell over the crowd. The tribal chief stepped out onto the ramp, his championship belt slung over his shoulder like a crown. His presence commanded the room. The crowd waited in hushed excitement, unsure of what Roman would say next. He slowly made his way down the ramp, his eyes burning with intensity, his every step calculated. As he entered the ring, the anticipation grew to a fever pitch. Roman stood still for a moment, letting the silence linger. With a voice cold and calm, he said the words that would send shockwaves through the entire wrestling world. The bloodline doesn't need outsiders. We've always had our own wise men. It's time we bring this back home. The words hung in the air. A promise, a declaration. The lights shifted to a deep, ominous blue. Then the unmistakable opening notes of Rikishi's music hit. But this wasn't the upbeat, fun track from the Attitude Era that fans remembered. No, this was something darker, more intense. The remix was slow, ominous, and as the Titantron lit up, images of war, legacy, and family filled the screen. The crowd roared as Rikishi, the legendary figure from the Samoan dynasty, appeared on the stage. The new Wiseman Roman extended his hand, a silent acknowledgement of the family bond that tied them together. Rikishi accepted it with a firm nod. There were no smiles, no playful exchanges, just pure, unfiltered family loyalty. It was clear from the moment he stepped into the ring that Rikishi was not here to be just another mouthpiece. He wasn't here to be the yes man that Paul Heyman had been. This was a man who had lived the life, bled the blood, and fought in the trenches of professional wrestling. With a microphone in hand, Rikishi's voice was not just commanding, It was prophetic. "The head of the table doesn't need an outsider whispering in his ear," he said, his tone as cold and unyielding as stone. "Not when he's got old-school blood guiding him. I raised him. I taught him the game. I know what loyalty means, and starting tonight, I am the Wiseman." The crowd was stunned into silence. The locker room, too, was stunned. Backstage, Paul Heyman, once the cornerstone of Roman's empire, was watching in disbelief. His jaw hung open, the weight of this moment sinking in. He knew, without a doubt, that his time was over. But what Rikishi brought to the table wasn't just symbolic, it was personal. Rikishi had a mission, and he wasn't wasting any time executing it. The impact on the Bloodline. It didn't take long for exclusive footage to leak online, showing Rikishi meeting privately with Solo Sikoa. For weeks, Solo had been questioning his place in the Bloodline. Many feared he might split off and forge his own path, but with Rikishi's return, everything changed. Who better to restore Solo's confidence than the very man who had guided the previous generation of Samoan warriors? If anyone could bring Solo back into the fold, it was Rikishi. The Usos, too, had been embroiled in their own battles, both with Roman and with each other. Jimmy and Jay had been struggling with their loyalty, and the cracks within the faction were growing wider. But now, with Rikishi at the helm, the potential for reconciliation is real. This isn't about threats or manipulation, it's about family. And there's no one better equipped to restore unity than the man who raised them, the man who watched them grow from childhood to championship glory. The change in the locker room backstage, the atmosphere was tense. Seth Rollins was seen in a heated phone call with CM Punk. Their fragile alliance had just begun to take shape, a potential threat to the Bloodline's dominance. But with Rikishi now in charge, everything had changed. This wasn't the version of the Bloodline they had been facing. This version was smarter, tighter, colder. Rikishi wasn't just a nostalgic callback to a bygone era. He was a warrior, a trainer, and a father figure. His experience, grit, and credibility were unmatched. He didn't need mind games. He didn't need manipulation. He didn't need to plot. He simply needed to be there, to stand firm and let the Bloodline's legacy speak for itself. Insiders have reported that CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and even Cody Rhodes are starting to feel the weight of Rikishi's return. They realised that the fall of Paul Heyman doesn't signal the fall of Roman Reigns. It marks the rise of an entirely new, more formidable version of the Bloodline. This version isn't just about titles, it's about family, about loyalty, about dominance. The tension with The Rock, one of the most intriguing aspects of this shift, is how it affects The Rock, a man who has long seen himself as the figurehead of the Samoan dynasty. Sources say that the Great One feels blindsided by this move, believing that his role as the family's elder has been usurped. With Rikishi now by Roman's side, pulling the strings from behind the scenes, The Rock's influence over the Bloodline may be waning. This tension could eventually lead to a full-blown power struggle between cousins. Rikishi's first words as Wiseman were not for entertainment. They were a warning. "To all you doubters out there," he said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade, "the Bloodline just went OG. We coming for everything." The resurrection of tradition. This wasn't just a new storyline. This wasn't just a clever booking decision. This was the resurrection of tradition. This was the convergence of history, respect, dominance, and family. Rikishi isn't just a relative. He is the cornerstone of the Inoki dynasty. He was there when this legacy began. He stood beside Yokozuna. He trained with The Rock, raised the Usos, and watched Roman rise. His experience is unmatched. Now, with Rikishi in charge, the Bloodline is more united, more ruthless, and more calculating than ever. And for anyone who doubts their power or their resolve, beware. Because the Bloodline is no longer just a faction, it is a dynasty. a dynasty that will stop at nothing to reign supreme. As for The Rock, time will tell how he reacts to this new development. But one thing is for sure, with Rikishi at the helm, the Bloodline is unstoppable. The era of the original Bloodline has arrived, and if you're not Blood, you're in danger.